A little sideline.
Well, it is the kind of, you say it is the manipulative power.
Well, I mean, all art is, whether we don't like to admit this, but all artists are a bit like Paul Goebbels. We're all propagandists, but we're just not propagandists for a nation state. We're propagandists for our own state of mind. We're all attempting, clumsily, mind control. It's just that if we're honest, we tell you that's what we're doing. Of course, an artist doing a painting, they're trying to change your mood. Not for any sort of malign reasons, but purely because they want you to share the thing that was previously trapped inside their head and was only a phenomenon to them. And I think that's the same with any form of art. And I've often found that taking disciplines from one form of art to another, it incredibly enriches both parties. I mean, like, I learnt things from writing comics that I have ploughed back into my prose writing. I mean, Jerusalem is almost tediously visual. And one of the reasons why it's going to be about 750,000 words is purely because I don't have an artist to actually depict these things for me. So I have to take a page, which I normally would do anyway if I was describing it for an artist.
In the script,
In the script. Because I am, famously tedious when it comes to that stuff. But
because we don't think of you as writing description, do we, really? Because, of course, we don't get to see much description in the comics. You leave that mostly to the artist. So, but, of course, it is in the script.
I mean, my lengthy descriptions have destroyed people in the past. I mean, there are people who've gone screaming into the night rather than actually face another.
I do want, because I did mention to you that Gary in the back row there, incredibly generously, has given me this. I'll just bring it out of here a second. Bear with me a second. Where is it now? Here we are.
Oh yeah.
Now I remember we went.
Now
to
this
the Royal,
is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. We went to the Royal College of Art, didn't we? I think. And you remember you had this with you at the time. And
the original.
Yeah, the original. You still got the original?
Somewhere. But
somewhere.
You really.
So have you not seen this in?
Yeah. This. This is the graph of big numbers. This is all of the characters down the side here, even the imaginary ones, like the little plastic figures on the railway layout.
And even the historical narratives are here, just kind of not there, in fact.
I hadn't got round to that, obviously. But
11.
But otherwise, you've just got 12 issues and all of this. Now, this is mainly what's inside my head. But normally, because I've got a really good memory, inside my head is good enough. The reason for putting it down in this kind of miniature mental patient scrawl like this is principally to frighten other comic writers. It's mainly...
It's a work of art as well, actually.
Well, it's quite nice, isn't it? But sort of... it is mainly just for the look on Neil Gaiman's face.
How do I write comics? Here you go.
Just do something like this.
I do this all the time.
Here's a little one I knocked up earlier.
Now, one of the words that's been hovering around in some of the papers that we've had over the last 2 days in discussion is the word cruelty. And as in, for example, just one example, obviously Eve is tortured by V in V, and the potential for transformation, for redemption, maybe even the necessity of cruelty, in this case, torture. And we just wanted to, I wanted to sound you out. Several people I know will probably have better questions than I've expressed it, but to sound you out on your view of how cruelty has become is a theme, more or less, in different ways. Even very grand gestures of cruelty, as in Ozymandias, of course, doing the ultimate thing of bringing this alien to create it, to kill a certain number of innocents in order to actually change the world or change a human being. Do you see it as necessary, these things?
No, except in comics, where you do tend to find that you have, especially in superhero comics, you have these ridiculously polarised characters that are not actually relevant to real life, where you've got people who are good to some degree, perhaps they've got a few flaws, and then you've got people who are bad, the villains.
Yeah.
And the villains, it necessitates a degree of cruelty. There's very few considerate villains. You know, that when they've got you hanging over the pit of magma, they're probably not going to ask, are those ropes too tight? You know, cruelty is pretty much what they're about. So, no, I don't think that, but I know what you're saying, that there are a lot of stories, particularly in V, where you've got that sequence where the psychologically and physically, I mean, waterboarding. I was ahead of the curve there, wasn't I?
Yeah, unfortunately, you are in many cases.
Well,
actually.
yeah, I am. I do feel obscurely to blame for all of the security cameras that you've probably noticed. Sort of. Well,
somebody else I think was not exactly blaming you, but citing that I think it was actually Jeff Clock. How many of his students are researching the Saw torture porn genre and finding some sort of thematic justification by going back to V. So you'll be pleased you've anticipated the whole field of torture porn studies.
I've unleashed a flood of torture porn. Well, that's something to put on my headstone, isn't it? I mean, I think that the thing, what I was trying to say in the melodramatic language of V was that, not that any of us have the right to torture other people, even if that is for the purposes of bringing about some sort of transformation. What I was perhaps saying was that very often transformation does need, even in an alchemical sense, transformation does kind of require a hot crucible. That if you're going to completely realise yourself, then that will probably mean stepping over a few of the comfortable boundaries of traditional existence. You may not find that a comfortable experience, but it is probably a necessary one if you're ever going to transcend the condition that you were born into. I'm not saying that it is always the case. I'm not saying that we all need to sort of throw ourselves into the fire in order to emerge like a phoenix on the other side. Sometimes you just burn, you know. But what I'm saying is that sort of, very often, if you're trying to progress as a human being, that will take you into uncomfortable territory, at least at first. And that was what I was probably trying to represent in Evie's ordeal.
And even if it's not some sort of huge apocalypse, it can be certainly you have examples of characters who have personal epiphanies, awakenings, transformations, which of course you really want to echo in the reader experiencing this fiction and having their own recognition of that.
I mean, the word apocalypse is a good one because I am quite apocalyptic. I've come to that realisation late in. I never started out meaning to be apocalyptic, but it just kind of creeps up on you. And apocalypse to me, it's like the apocalypse poets. Henry Treece, the lovely Nicholas Moore, and various others, and they were taking the word apocalypse purely to mean revelation. But obviously, with the other connotations it has, this is a shattering revelation. This is a revelation that ends your world. I mean, that might just be that it's a realisation that casts your previous perception into doubt, that sort of, or destroys it. But in either event, it would seem to be a necessary thing. So that is the way that I tend to treat apocalypse, which relates to the stuff. It's a personal apocalypse for Evie. Yeah. In V for Vendetta.
Or maybe for Timothy Holley in Small Killing too.
In Small Killing, yeah. It's. I think that moment of apocalypse, I think it is. I mean, let's face it, the real apocalypse, you're probably not going to really know much about it. It's all the anticipation.